It's weird how the chapter itself was good. Like, the chapter itself was pretty good. But the clear, like, the big meat of the chapter that made it, in my opinion, one of the best chapters we've had in this entire arc, if not a contender for the best chapter we've had so far within the Spade War, is the last couple of pages with Megicula pulling a fast one on everyone. And when I say a fast one on everyone, it seems to even be Lucifaro, which is, again, one of the factors in this whole chapter that made it one of my favorites, because it does give a bit of credence to the theory of, like, are the devils all actually in leagues with each other, or are we going to get devils backstabbing each other the second they can, the first opportunity they can, because they're devils. They're not going to, just because they have a level of hierarchy set up within their, in their world, it's entirely based off of strength and not based off of loyalty or a earned level of trust. And I'm really liking Megicula so far already. I mean, this so far, given just this chapter, not even talking about what we already had on Megicula, is also giving me a devil with some intelligence. I like Zagrid. I mean, people are fully aware of my dislike of Nama and Lilith. They tried to be smart too late, and because of their overly reckless and dumb decisions, they're dead. Whereas now Megicula is coming out and clearly a devil that has schemes and plans and things in the works that I'm very excited to see. I know Megicula has had a very persistent and loyal following within the series of just like people who are confident Megicula's got her own thing scheming. Megicula's got a complete and total different agenda outside of what Lucifaro's doing, outside of what the Dark Triad are doing, and it seems to be that way. And that's one of the things I like about the Devils that I'm happy is being shown up again in this chapter, is though that there is a set level of kind of like working together between them, but the Devils are, like, at the end of the day, all out for themselves. And I was talking to some guys of, like, when Nama and Lilith were fighting Asta, and it's like once Lilith realized that, like, fighting Asta was a terrible idea, she should have just left, because she could have went out in the world and, like, it's weird to think, like, oh yeah, the devil just, like, goes and leaves. It'd be really strange for the aspect of the build up for, like, the fights and stuff in the stories, but you got to think of it from the devil's perspective of risk dying or literally just turn and run and then go enjoy yourself, because, like, they're the most, like, the thing they find the most joy from is torturing humans. You have humans all over the world, and realistically, as far as we know, anti-magic and all these arcane people and the people that are threats to Lilith and these other high-ranking Supreme Devils are people, within the Spade Kingdom, the Clover Kingdom, people who are involved in this war. So it's like, you could just leave, and who knows if there are people out in the world that can really contend with you and oppose you if you just decide to get out of there. And it looks like Megicula might be playing a similar route of, like, get out and then, continue plans from there. So, like, chapter pretty much begins right where he set off. We got a really nice Noelle color page. I thought that was really good. She's just in some, like, sick battle pose. She's got her water sword. I know people have been kind of, like, back and forth on the water sword. I think what the thing about her water sword that's really the stranger thing is, like, it has a very regular design. I think in the color page that Tabata gave us, it actually adds a little bit more uniqueness to it with, like, the areas on Noelle's Saint Valkyrie dress as well as the sword, where you'll have, like, the parts that are darker water themed, and then those that kind of, like, way brighter, almost like a little, it looks like there's a little bit of green in there, in the, like, the style of color, so it differentiates them. It's kind of like, it reminds me of, like, when he goes into his spirit diving, obviously he has that color difference. It reminds me a lot about that, well, not just being the same thing. I do like that a lot. I think that's really good for the form, because when we saw the form, it was cool. I liked it, but it wasn't, like, I thought it was pretty sick, but it wasn't one of those ones where it's, like, changing the game. I think that in color, it definitely looks way better. Because in the manga, it's mostly just looking like Noelle's got, like, some extra pieces on her Valkyrie dress. Whereas this, you'd be able to also see a visual difference of the color of water. And I think that's going to be one of the things that is, like, a shown addition of, like, she's not just using her normal water magic. She's also using spirit magic on top of it, you know, the Saint stage. And it's kind of like just having. I almost said something that could have been a spoiler for other series, but it's like how you'll have an element and you'll have the same element, but it's a different version of it. It's like a buffed version, but it's like a slightly different color kind of thing when you have stuff like that. It's something kind of like that, I think, is the easiest way to describe it. It's just a very simplistic visual divider for Noelle's form. That, you know, if we saw Valkyrie dress versus, you know, her spirit drive Saint Valkyrie dress, you would have a color difference on top of just like the general addition of pieces to it. It'd be like a slight digivolve. I think that's like another easy way to kind of go about it. But like Noelle is just going in, she's wrecking Vanica. I'm very curious as to Saint stage, like, is she all around just more powerful, or is it like Saint magic is like such a weakness to devils and devil users that it's almost like a kryptonite to them? Not like the same extent, but it's like you could be stronger, but say you fight a character the same level as what Vanica's at now, but she doesn't have any devil powers. Would Noelle be the same level, or is she just dealing extra levels of damage because of how Saint magic seems to work against devils? Now, it's going to be one of those things we got to wait a little bit to find out. And I guess it'd be a little rough because we don't know if Tabata's going to have any species or characters beyond devil-associated people, just based off of like where the series is at so far. I'm still hoping for some Merlin-type super wizard somewhere out in the world that's like a bad guy, but you know, whatever. Noelle's just doing her attacks, so you got some really good, just general fighting choreography parts. I really liked when Vanica broke the Sea Dragon sword, not just because she did it. I like the way that it was done in the scene where she has all these blood spikes go out all over the place. It just looks a little bit monstrous and chaotic. Noelle's just fighting her. You have all these blood spikes come up, but they're being hindered a bit by the roses from Charlotte. And I know some people aren't a fan of Charlotte helping with Noelle, but I think it's clear off of like how this fight's progressing that like this is like the stuff where Noelle was just going into her Saint stage form in the last chapter. In this chapter, that was just the opening portions of the fight. Whereas with Noelle having like a little bit of a help at this part, I think it's gonna be fine because it's not like the big full scale of the fight, whereas like now we're seeing Megicula, we got this devil frickin' Lolo Petrica, like things are opening up much crazier. But Noelle is just like works her down, like she just dodging all her attacks, goes and kicks her, just does all these combos, and then it's just like 100% Vanica, her form is broken down, like Noelle has a sword right to her. And again, that's one of the things that I'd be curious about, is if Noelle, like if you looked at it like a stat-wise thing, would it be like Noelle is greater than her in stats, or is Noelle, because of Saint Stage, like a counter to devil-based characters or anything that would be like of a similar nature? I'm fine with either. I just kind of want clarification on it, just because it would. The only reason I would say like I would prefer like the Saint Stage buff against devils be a much bigger factor is just because it would put Noelle above so many of the other characters so quickly. I get she's fused with Undine right now, and that's just completely something outside of what Noelle was doing prior. It's just the speed of progression, and I know like people like to get the whole like Noelle and thing, but it'd be like Noelle has Saint Stage, but like is still fighting Xenon, and it would be really crazy of a boost. It's not something I'm against. It would just be something that I'd be like, I don't know if the hastily manner that the moving is the best option. I don't know. I don't know Tabata's plans. Like I said, it could just be necessary because when we get to the bigger devils, that they're going to need to be as powerful as like 100% Vanica, if not more. Either way, I'm fine with that. I kind of like the idea though, if has Saint Stage, Asta has Anti-Magic, and Noelle has Saint Stage, that it's like, if it's based off of like a weakness boost, kind of like how Anti-Magic is, you could have the devils all be stronger than them, but it's more of like the main cast have this one aspect of their ability that is like what they got to play around, a weakness to the devils that they have. I think that'd actually be a lot cooler, personally, but yeah, that's just my opinion. Once she's doing that, you have a really good moment from Vanica. I actually really enjoyed where she's talking to Noelle and she's saying how like much she enjoyed the fight and how like the feeling that she had, the great feeling. She's wondering if it's the feeling of friendship, and she wants to be friends with Noelle. And I actually laughed because when I saw that, I was thinking of Shura from over in Eden Zero, this bad guy. It's like, oh yeah, thanks for beating some shit out of me. Do you want to be friends now? It'd be cool. That any normal person would be like, no, you're a damn psychopath. This is. I just like that was a similar setup, but yeah, it's very clear that Vanica just wants to have. Vanica has this really weird and warped mindset, I think, of what's like who's important based off of like her whole mindset of combat above everything she seems to have. I know some people are turning into some weird shit things. I don't think so. I think her first go-to was friendships. I would at least believe off of now that it's way more of like as she says, like she wants to be friends or rivals. No, like Vanica, very strange. Definitely a very strange character. We'll have to see where things progress with her. Things aren't looking good for her though, because when Megicula comes out, she's saying how the souls of 3 vastly powerful mages of the same sex, talking about Aesir, Lolopechka, and Vanica, are sacrifices for her way to come through. And it's not the same thing. So there's a theory that I had a while ago. If like that, some devils got out, like how would they exist and do things in the world and in the story? And you could have something like devils go out like somewhere in the world, like they're out finding out information on exactly what sealed them inside of the underworld, and like what made that barrier that they can't come through. Because the fact that Megicula knows a way when she mentions that Lucifaro doesn't even know, like this is something that Lucifaro is unaware of and they haven't noticed what's going on. I'd be willing to bet it's one of like if this was made by somebody, like say like is like whatever locked the devils down there is like made by the gods or titans or whatever, it would mean that there are ways around it, and like specific rules like this, like Megicula's got like, oh, she takes 3 same-sex souls of powerful wizards, has them die, and is able to figure out a way through that to pass and go into the human world. It's gonna be weird to like once we get to like more specific stuff like that. Is this just something that she figured out through some crazy magic that this was possible, or is this in like the ruling of how the gate works that like locks them down there? But I'm very much happy about that. Like I said, I'm stoked that there's stuff going on that Lucifaro is not part of, just because I know that there's the 3 top devils down there, time, space, and gravity, but it's clear that there's not a big game of teamwork going on between the devils. They are after their own schemes, they're after their own plans, and they're willing to screw each other over if it happens. Because when you think about it, if they're all trapped down there, say like Megicula's out, figures out how to stop the gate from being opened, and then just decides to screw the other devils and being stuck down there, free range. You have free range around like all around the human world, and no one's gonna really be able to do anything about it. But now Megicula's out, she ended up using more of the curse on Lolopechka, and we have this sick devil fuse Lolo. I really want to see what she can do in this, because beforehand she was cursed, and it's just like she's just, fighting with her water. But I would assume now she's gonna have devil water, or like demon water, whichever one Sabata's gonna translate it to, or I guess write it and then whatever they're gonna translate it to. But whatever effects it's gonna have is gonna be really cool. Like, would it be like some? I'm trying to think how it would be. Would it be maybe like water that messes with your mana? Because, like, so far we've seen from people like Noelle and Lolopechka and stuff, and Undine, that water seems to associate with large amounts of mana. So, like, maybe it would do the opposite, where it would mess with other people's mana. I don't know. It's definitely... It's one of those ones I'm always hyped for when we get hints at people's powers or specific spells. Like, like when a character ends a chapter where they're mentioning, oh, I'm going to use that spell, or, like, they give the name of it or something like that, where it's like, to a degree of what it is and what's coming, but it's like, I can't wait to see how it's gonna go. Like, we should get demon water, but who knows how it's gonna be implemented, and who knows how exactly they're gonna combat against it. I still think that they're gonna have to have more people show up. I'm fully on board with Noelle showing up. I know some people want Dorothy. I actually am okay with Dorothy. I've been on the kind of the fence with Dorothy, but I'm like, where else would Dorothy go? And Dorothy could do fine here. But when I was thinking initially of Dorothy in the fight, I didn't expect Megicula to be coming out here. I was thinking more for Vanica. Like, Noelle runs out of her Saint Stage form, Noelle shows up, Noelle and fight Vanica, and like maybe that like sets up her ultimate match or something. That's what I was thinking. With Megicula out, I could see Dorothy showing up as well as Noelle, really even the field, because we don't know where Megicula is at. We don't know how strong Megicula really is, and from what we saw with Nama and Lilith, at least when Lilith fused, when she was realized that this was a bad scenario and she couldn't really deal with Asta, she was faster than him. So we didn't see the full capability during the whole time of what a devil of that caliber could do, and this is a stronger devil. And on top of that, like I said at the start, this is a much smarter devil. This is a devil that is tactical. This is a devil that should be scheming, should be using her magic way more intelligently, and I think is going to be the level of hype that I think people wanted with Nama and Lilith was to be a more powerful version of Zagrid, because when we look at Zagrid, it's not just the level of power he was when you looked at the guys he was fighting and stuff. I know some people gotta, you gotta explain them, because it's Zagrid is hyped up, but we understand the placements of the devils. I think Zagrid first, because when you think about the fight between them, if Nama and Lilith fought as unintelligently as they did against Noctost and stuff, I personally think that Zagrid could defeat them just based off of his hacks plus being smarter than they are. And it's that intelligence thing that I think a lot of people were hoping for with Lilith and Nama. Whereas, think about, the present Zagrid had and the level of skill he had in using his magic. That was one of the bigger things with him. He just was so good at using his hacks magic, whereas Lilith and Nama didn't really do anything that impressive. And Megicula, I would hope, will be on level with those guys, with Lilith and Nama, but have that, raw devil schemester kind of setup that Zagrid had. I've got a lot of hype for Megicula now that Megicula's here, and I can't wait to see where this goes. I'm actually really hoping that if they defeat Megicula in this fight, that Megicula isn't killed and Megicula flees and goes off and runs out in the world and gets away. I think that would actually be a much cooler setup for this fight, because Megicula was the devil that we were named first in the series. We actually got Megicula's name before Zagrid, and Megicula was hyped up since the start of this arc, so I'd be really happy to see, maybe Megicula escapes and at the end of this goes to Boris. I think that would be really cool. It's Boris and Megicula on the run, two really smart bad guys, especially, Morris with curse wording magic would be insane. But anyway, other than that, though, comment below, thumbs up the video, friendly like button, subscribe button, and check out my other videos. Other than that, I appreciate everybody who already subscribed. Thank you all for listening. Bye.